Three, two, one, and we're live. Welcome to another episode of Hot Coffee Consulting. I'm joined today by Raj Dhanda of the Nielsen Marketing Cloud, and he's going to help to explain and to describe Nielsen Marketing Cloud and the proposition that's currently available in the market. So welcome, Raj.
Thanks for having me, Miles, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to explain the Nielsen Marketing Cloud. So the Nielsen Marketing Cloud is a division of Nielsen that really sits on three core pillars. That's the exceptional data that we have a leading DMP software in the marketplace, and obviously our world-renowned measurement solutions. So I'll break each one of those down for you to describe those individually. So first of all, Nielsen's data assets. So Nielsen has been acquiring data businesses over the past 4 or 5 years, beginning with Excelate, which is one of the biggest data marketplaces in the world, which bought a data asset as well as a marketplace and a DMP to Nielsen, followed by Visual DNA, which is another one of the largest data businesses in Europe. And with that infrastructure brought into the marketplace, Nielsen's owned and operated panel data. So this is a real focus for us this year, really focusing on our owned and operated data assets. So, we all know Nielsen's gold standard panel data. So whether that is the CPG home scan data, or from our digital panels, or from our unincentivized consumer surveys, Nielsen is able to source rich amount of data from sources that are completely opt-in or under contract with Nielsen. These data assets give us 4 things. They give us breadth, depth, scale, and quality. And that's they are the benchmarks that we really use to pit ourselves against the competition when it comes to data. I begin with data because obviously, a DMP or measurement solutions are only as strong as the data that really fuels them. When you consider that Nielsen's data assets have been around for over a decade and there to service as many targeting and optimization needs that an agency might need them, and to service all kinds of publishers, that should give you an idea of the breadth of the Nielsen offering.
And is that a strategic plan that Nielsen set out with? Obviously, I think it's fair to say that there's been quite a consolidated approach to acquisition of these different data assets. So you mentioned Excelate and Visual DNA. So clearly there was a strategy within the Nielsen business to go out to build those data assets in order to feed into and empower the various different solutions, measurement solutions and technology solutions that you are also building.
Absolutely a deliberate move by Nielsen to kind of own and operate that data generation capability, because not only does it give us control on how the data is sourced, how the data is modeled, etc. It really makes us unique. I read an article of yours a week or so ago about the commoditization of data, and how really data brands have to focus on their differentiation in the market, what makes them unique, but obviously what performs. Obviously, if we're in control of the data that we're generating, we can then test and learn from it and make sure it is performing to the standards that our clients expect us to. In a competitive market, we also want to make sure that our software and our measurement solutions are exceptional. So it is very much a deliberate move to own and operate data assets and make them a core part of our overall proposition.
And Visual DNA for me personally is, I think, one of the more interesting data assets on the marketplace today. I don't know if you were planning on going into a little bit more detail about these specific data sets, but if you could just describe the approach that Visual DNA takes in classifying and curating some of the data sets.
Absolutely. One of my favorite data assets, obviously, because I came in through the acquisition of Visual DNA, but Visual DNA set out to understand internet users and their psychology, not necessarily actually for marketing services purposes. There are actually many different use cases for that data. But essentially, it's an unincentivized survey that users take on their own accord. It's picture-based, and what it's doing is testing users on their ocean profile. So that's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, with the idea being that highs and lows of those different attributes make different personality types. Mm-hmm. Now, some of the interesting stuff that we've done this year is map that raw psychological signal to the shopping journey, which has given birth to our shopping personalities line of segmentation, which is fantastic not just for optimizing targeting, but things like DCO. I mean, for analytics purposes, an agency or a publisher can understand, the true personality of their website visitors or their customers or engagers, in order to sort of really start to tailor that journey. And Visual DNA really adds a different layer of color on top of the Nielsen data asset, because underneath that, a lot of the time the socio-demographics or socio-economic profiles of particular brands, say for example cosmetics, can be largely the same. Mm-hmm. But if you ask a brand like L'Oreal, what's the difference between the brands, they will tell you there's an absolute difference in the personalities of each individual brand, and also the personas of the people that they're actually trying to target with the ad creative that they have spent so much money on. Mm-hmm. The Visual DNA quiz platform is also a platform to ask consumers other aspects of their lifestyle, so demographics, what their lifestyles are, what they're looking to buy next, for example. And we also have a platform where, again, users have to opt in, where we can ask questions on behalf of a brand. And essentially what this does for advertisers is gives them a platform to generate new first-party data, mm-hmm. where they can ask questions within this opt-in, unincentivized survey and receive back very deep insights as a result of doing so.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I think that is something that I see happening more and more in the sense of first-party data mining exercises with brands and agencies seeking ways in which they can build out new data sets, new first-party assets through surveys, through quizzes, through different instruments and mechanisms, but ultimately aimed in the same direction, which is we have a bit of first-party data, we know a little bit about our consumer base, but actually there's some specific things that we'd like to understand. Maybe that's personality, maybe it's other purchase behavior that would inform our planning process, our buying process, etc.
And the best thing is it's an unincentivized environment, so it's not surveys that are forced onto people who are incentivized to take surveys, which gives the advertiser a fantastic environment. These surveys are actually global, localized in all of the kind of big European languages, localized for the States, Australia, Japan. We have it in 2 Chinese languages, and also developed.
So in terms of data coverage, then you just touched on some of the markets where you're operating at a high level of coverage. Nielsen Marketing Cloud, is that a global proposition or is it focused towards certain regions or certain markets?
It's absolutely a global proposition. Pretty much any country that has a level of sophistication when it comes to applying data for optimizing media, we have strong presence there. But the Americas, pretty much all of Europe, and going out into APAC, we have Australia, Singapore, etc. Also Hong Kong, we have a large broadcasting organisation that took on our DMP. We're developing their data infrastructure for them.
Great. And I think I ask everybody that comes on the podcast, but in terms of the markets where you see the highest level of growth opportunity, where do you see that coming from?
So the big five in Europe.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely the big five in Europe. We'll go into industries specifically a little bit later, but the UK, we've had fantastic traction in the UK with publishers, advertisers, and even agencies until now.
Okay, great.
So I guess that leads on to the DMP. All parts of the industry see value in the DMP, and I guess that kind of goes back to a variety of things. So Nielsen as a business has always had great relationships with the largest CPGs, retailers, just simply because of the other activities that it undertakes, so research, analytics, and so on. So it kind of, the DMP was developed, as a hub for all of Nielsen's data to help plan, activate, and analyze. So, one of our big publisher clients is Global Radio, who are using it to power their DAX platform, like J&J and other, some of the biggest CPG brands in the world. We think, the feedback that we get is that in terms of analytics and media optimization, it's one of the best systems around. Its connectivity to the wider ecosystem is also exceptional, and that is the reason for that is because the data brands, the data businesses have been around for over a decade, actively integrating with all parts of the ecosystem. So today we sit on a vast distribution network where, because we operate a data business, our synchronization with those platforms is prioritized. So one of the other kind of benefits of our DMP is that level of sync and connectivity with other platforms. And so the software, as I mentioned, very advanced analytics tools. But then, obviously, the third pillar is measurement.
Before we go on to that, just on the DMP for a second. So I've seen the solution. I think it's fantastic. I agree with all of the points that you just made. I don't think that the market is as aware of the Nielsen data management platform as some of your competitors, be it Oracle or Salesforce. So why do you think that is? And is there a concerted effort to bring more awareness around the data management platform to the market over the next several months?
Absolutely. So, it's a big focus for us this year to proliferate the brand. Part of the reason that, there's perhaps a lower brand awareness is because we're slightly later to the market than some of the other DMPs. But for that, we've been lucky enough to take in the feedback, from customers of our competitors to develop our own product. That's what's really helped us refine the analytics and the media optimization capabilities, but as well as other things like client service. Some of the feedback we were getting from the market was that, post-sales, perhaps with other DMPs, it was difficult to get the level of client service that they would have expected. We have that all localized and importantly in-house to help our customers along with that. But yeah, I guess that's what we learned coming later into the market. Yes, perhaps we suffered in terms of brand awareness, but I guess with some of the big partners that we're getting on now, I think the word's actually starting to get out there that we have a very credible proposition in the marketplace that's to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some of the data assets that you make available through your platform are unique, they are differentiated, and they tend to power the overall solution from an analytics perspective, from a media buying perspective, and from an optimization perspective. So I absolutely agree that the solution, I believe, is a best-in-class solution. How do you think about the DMP marketplace in general? Because it's interesting to hear you say that you're increasing investment in that space. You see that as a big growth opportunity for the Nielsen Marketing Cloud in general. There is a lot of conflicting dialogue and discussion in the industry as to the strength and the virility of the DMP landscape. There's a number of articles that have come out over the past 12 months. The DMP is dead and we're moving on to CDP and more open cloud methodologies for managing data. So how do you see the ecosystem developing?
I see in terms of product development, it's up to DMPs to make sure that the product is what people actually need. I think sometimes people can look at the core functionalities of a DMP, i.e. onboarding data, piping that data out to another platform, and start to look at them all as the same, also coupled with bad user experience. I think that's another reason that is, people were perhaps speaking about DMPs in that way. But if you can genuinely improve the workflows and the efficiency in the way that a business, whether that's a publisher or an agency, operates, if you can truly do that and reduce their wastage, reduce their overall costs, then I think the DMP certainly still does have a place in the market. If you look at Nielsen as a whole, as a wider business, we have a variety of different assets. So looking at the sort of traditional research businesses that we have, when I say traditional, I mean traditional digital.
Established.
Established, that's the correct term. But things like DAR, things like, we made an acquisition of a business called Visual IQ, which is a multi-touch attribution business. Mm-hmm. When you look at all of the different sort of technologies that could power an individual stack, I think, and you can pull them all together into a singular sort of analytics and capability that is modular, which is another key component, modularity, because not one size fits all. Mm-hmm. I think you can create a very compelling proposition. So I guess my answer to whether people think DMPs are stale is I guess have a look at the capabilities and actually compare them on things like functionality and the data assets, the vision going forward. So I guess from a Nielsen perspective, we've had the Marketing Cloud, which is, I guess, the umbrella term for the DMP and the data assets. And but Nielsen is much bigger than that, right? Nielsen has, like I said, multi-touch attribution, lots of other digital capabilities, sales uplift measurement, that can all come together and create, a super proposition. So, on measurement, Nielsen built its reputation on measurement, right? So it is, the world's leading independent measurement business, right? So it's been a big focus, spent millions and millions of dollars over decades developing its practices, and the three pillars of Nielsen's measurement are reach, resonance, and reaction. Obviously, we know products like digital ad ratings available for reach from the established side of the business. That's moved on to sort of total ad ratings, so measuring the incrementality of TV. Resonance, so brand surveys, so Nielsen's digital brand effect products, visual DNA's brand uplift products, and then reaction. And now this is kind of one of the most exciting areas for me. Obviously, within the Marketing Cloud, we have a reaction study which can look at a digital exposure and match that to whether somebody bought something in the store afterwards. So measuring for retailers sales uplift. So that's actually moving into what, excuse the buzzword, but real world outcomes. Looking at things like sales effect, looking at things like footfall, and identifying other proxies that signal a positive outcome is where Nielsen is at today. And I guess, going back to your earlier question, that proposition in its entirety, when you look at the exceptional data assets, the software that has got great functionality coupled with the kind of the measurement capability as an entirety, is what we call our proposition. So we're looking forward to getting the brand out there this year, and signing off some more clients.
And in terms of clients then, are there specific industries that you focus on? Are there particular verticals or?
Yeah, so there's four key verticals. So first of all, the publisher side of things. It's a massive focus for us this year. It's, Global Radio, for example, use our platform to power their DAX proposition. But Nielsen through whether it's Visual DNA, Excelate, or Nielsen Businesses, has a very, very long-standing relationship with publishers. For years, we've been providing them with the tools to analyze their inventory for measurement and so on, data that it's kind of natural for them to look at the Nielsen Marketing Cloud as their DMP. So some of the kind of capabilities that we're bringing through, first-party segmentation and decisioning, first and third-party tracking, are really kind of what make it a compelling proposition for publishers. So that's a kind of a focus.
It's interesting that is a focus for you. I think it's absolutely the right focus for any DMP in the marketplace today. It seems like most of the established data management platforms have completely abandoned the supply side of the market. They've abandoned publishers seeking advertiser dollars, and there seems to be a huge amount of opportunity to re-engage with publishers that still have very serious needs, very important requirements to create segmentation, to monetize that segmentation, and to better understand their own readership. And so I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's we see it as a low-hanging fruit, right? Because we have data that the clients of these publishers know and understand and respect at a level of scale and quality that they would expect. And the tools as well, we can segment their first-party users, using the company's own pixels. In terms of pipes as well, we provide publishers connectivity to platforms that they wouldn't otherwise have integrations with. We couple that with our sort of brand uplift and measurement studies, provide them with analytics tools. So, we really have a really compelling proposition for publishers. Not to say that advertisers are deprioritized. We obviously are absolutely going after advertisers, but we see, just like you say, we see people abandoning publishers somewhat as a target market. We think that market has a lot to offer, and we have a lot to offer them.
I agree, and I think it's short-sighted to abandon the supply side of the market, because I think if you look at the way in which the market is developing, your actual strategic advantage as a technology provider, as a data management platform, in the future, I think, is going to be more focused on bringing the two sides of the market together. It's bringing the supply side, the publisher data assets, to the advertisers in a second-party data marketplace, or some kind of arrangement where there is an element of trust and transparency between the two parties, the two entities that are contracting. And so I think that where some have potentially sacrificed the supply side in favor of the buy side, or vice versa, that I think is a potential error.
Yeah, so I would agree with you. And so this year, we're looking to deepen our partnerships with our existing publisher landscape, but also take on some more. Publishers aside, obviously advertisers, we have kind of made massive headway with some of the biggest CPGs, that are traditionally data poor. We've provided them with kind of data generation capability. So, we spoke about visual DNA earlier as one source, but other sources, things like our panels, our CPG panels in all of the kind of major European countries, are another source of data that CPGs can rely on. Going back to sort of the exclusivity of our platform, that data is only available natively within the Nielsen DMP. And that's why we have such high engagement from particularly CPGs. Advertisers come to us because we're able to not just generate new data for them, but kind of enrich the view of kind of what little data they may have already. Going down to sort of platforms, so this is ad tech platforms. This could be DSPs, anyone in the chain that is looking for connectivity between one platform and another. So we have connectivity, into Facebook, into all of the platforms. So we are used as a bridge, I guess, between one platform and another, and that's a key use case for platforms. Also, we license our data to them in order for them to create insights either on their platforms or as output for their clients, which may be agencies or brands. And then last but not least, agencies. So, for me, agencies have the most use for our capabilities than, arguably the other categories of industries that I mentioned earlier. Because, agencies are using our measurement capabilities, they are using data across all of the markets, across all of the verticals. They have a need to improve their output to clients, their insights and their analytics capability, and also to be connected centrally to the wider ecosystem in a technical way. And that combination of capabilities is what we can provide. An agency may feel like they have enough data, but do they have the ability to pull that data from one platform to another with a unified ID? Do they have the ability to generate new data, in environments where where it's friendly and polite to the consumer, where that data is collected in a way that it's not forced upon them, but is also going to give them and their clients very kind of deep insights compared to any other way of collecting data. So from data generation to analytics, so using obviously the analytics capabilities that we have, that can help improve the connectivity between planning and trading teams, we believe, and the business teams where, for example, you're going for a pitch, you need insight. We can generate the data using our consumer surveys, provide that insight in a digital form to the agency. The agency can then further analyze that, coupling it with other data that they may have to create, a compelling level of insight for that pitch process. All the way down to tactical things. A brand wants to know whether consumers have a certain perception or which customer buys coffees from McDonald's versus coffees from Starbucks, for example. We can deliver that deep level of insight so that agencies can plan and optimize targeting and actually inform the creative process. So, we think the combination of assets that we have provided in a kind of a modular fashion can really start to help the agency sync up a little bit better.
And who do you think are your major competitors in this space? I mean, just thinking about side-by-side comparisons, it seems like you match it pretty well with Oracle and the Oracle Data Cloud, having a proprietary data asset, having some measurement capability, brand verification and safety capabilities. So who do you see as your competitors within this space?
I think you've probably mentioned the main one. They have a compelling proposition, but I think what we have over and above what Oracle have are things like the closed loop measurement, sales uplift. We have advanced capabilities in analytics and optimization within the DMP. Nielsen's measurement products, have that kind of historic halo effect of being independent and well respected throughout the industry. So yes, you may say as a shell, they have data, they have DMP, and they have measurement. I would agree with you, but I think when it comes to the data, the breadth, depth, I feel like we're exceptional there. And then our measurement capabilities, our reach and frequency measurement does also include viewability and fraud analysis, and that is just one aspect of our measurement solutions, over and above which we have reaction, for example, brand surveys, resonance is brand surveys, and then reaction, which is things like sales uplift and footfall studies. So I would say yes, they're a competitor on similar elements, but I think if you look at each component part individually, we have aspects of each one of those three pillars which makes us the best.
From your perspective. And I guess you could quite nicely divide the DMP landscape between those DMPs that do have their own proprietary data sets, Load2Me, Oracle, Nielsen, and those that don't, Salesforce and Adobe, for example. Where do you think those DMPs that don't have their own proprietary data assets, where do they go next?
It's a good question. I mean, we certainly like to talk about the fact that we have our own proprietary data assets. with some of the ones you mentioned, Adobe and Salesforce, we partner with them in that if a client of theirs would like to access our data, provided the contract is between Nielsen and said provider, we will make that data available. But the data is not natively available, and you would have to pay a premium to have access to that data. I mean, I'm not sure what the next step is for them, but certainly for us, developing our data asset to kind of really sort of steal a march being in the position that we're in is certainly what our focus is. As well as developing, as you say, second-party relationships, which we're in a great position to do. I think I would like to answer your question by saying, focusing inwardly, we feel like we're in an advantageous position compared to DMPs that perhaps don't own a data proposition, because of some of the things again that you mentioned in the article a couple of weeks ago, where data brands really have to focus on their own proposition. And for Nielsen, the DMP is one of our own propositions, and the data is what makes it unique.
Well, I certainly think it gives you a distinct advantage in as much as you control a significant aspect of the entire data management conversation. If you are in control of your own data assets and you're able to take ownership on the cleaning and the normalization and the classification of those data sets for use in a specific context, either building out custom segmentation on behalf of a particular advertiser and having that reflected in their DMP seat, or having a completely different approach to the way in which you go about verifying your audience segmentation so that you have a clear and distinct advantage when you're talking about analytics and when you're talking about measurement and profiling.
Modeling. We launched our AI capability, and it's one of the only ad tech products to win an R&D 100 award. And it's like, modeling is an art, right? Modeling is only as good as the data points that you have to model against. Obviously, having such a vast number of attributes and such a vast scale to model against, that's what is again a key competency of ours. Also, our AI capabilities able to optimize models in real time and update segmentation in the platform in real time, which means that brands can actually keep up with the changing face of their customers in hours and minutes, as opposed to updating models on a periodic basis, like weeks or months, for example. So modeling is certainly a key competency of ours in that regard. But then again, you're right in terms of the data cleansing, in terms of optimizing the quality of the data, understanding it. Having all of these functions in-house where you own and operate that data is very important. And then I guess when it comes to compliance too, right? Because compliance is a very important thing to think about in today, obviously. Having control over the data sets that you own is fundamental to ensuring that you can remain compliant. And where Nielsen has panelists that are contracted, surveys that we're sort of that are opt-in for consumers, we're doing everything we can in order to provide the transparency that our agency, platform, publisher, and brand partners need to satisfy them that that they're using quality data. And compliance is one mark of quality, with others being sort of performance, accuracy, and so on. So, yeah, I would agree with you that having control, it gives us a better chance of maintaining the quality of that data.
Great. Well, we're coming to the end of our session. Before we go, I just wanted to ask whether or not Nielsen has any events on the horizon, anything up and coming from a PR perspective.
Yes, we do. They're confidential at the moment, but we will certainly keep you posted, Mark.
Okay, well, yeah, let me know and I can add links to the video when I send it out.
Great.
Thank you very much, Raj, for your time. Appreciate it.